Several top-profile U.S. news story websites are provisionally inaccessible in Europe following new EU Information Protect rules came in impact. The Chicago Podium and LA Times were amongst such. They were now inaccessible in largest Europe countries. Meantime, complaints were registered versus U.S. technology giants during several hours of the General Information Protect Regulatory, GDPR, take impact. GDPR gives EU countrymen more than rights above how their data is utilized. It is enforced by EU lawmakers to range technology firms' powers. By the rules, companies work in the EU, or any associate or clubhouse in the bloc, must show they include a legal base for handling private information, or person considerable fines. Down there are 6 legislative bases for with private information, consisting receive courier agreement of consumer. Yet, in largest cases firms must as well show how they requirement the private information for a particular goal. Facebook, Google, Instagram and WhatsApp are charged of coercion users to agreement to aim advertisement to use the services. If the complaints are upheld, the websites may be constrained to changing how they work and they could be penalized. News story sites during the Tronc and Lee Enterprises print publication groups were struck. Tronc's top-profile sites involve the New York Everyday News Story, Chicago Podium, LA Times, Orlando Sentry, and Baltimore Sunshine. Its communication recite, sadly, our website is now inaccessible in largest Europe countries. We are betrothed on the question and devoted to looking at options how supporting our complete band of digital offerings to the EU marketplace. Lee Enterprises publishes 46 everyday newspapers through 21 state. Its declaration recite, "We're disappointed. The website is provisionally inaccessible. We recognize you are trying to accessing the website of a nation identity to the Europe Economical Region, EEA, consisting the EU that enforces the General Information Protect Regulatory, GDPR, and thus cannot warrant you accessing at the period." CNN and the New York Times were amongst such not struck. The Washington Position and Period were amongst such demand EU users to accept to new regulation. Misusing or casually processing private data will give fines of up to 20 million euros, dollar, pound, or 4% of a business's world circulation. In the UK, that is due to keep the EU in 2019. A new Information Protect Act will include the provision of the GDPR, in several insignificant changes. All EU countrymen now include the order to see which data companies include on them, and to include how data remote. Companies must be more than busy in getting agreement to gather and use information too much, in theoretical spell an end to easy I accept in regulation and facility checkmark boxes. Companies must as well speak all struck users on any information violation, and speak the controlling credibility during 72 several hours. Every EU term country must set up a observational credibility, and these authorities will job along through national borders to provide companies perform. The new chairman of the Europe Information Protect Executive Board, Andrea Jelinek, said the FT she anticipated cases to be registered inevitably. If the complainants go, we will be prepared, she told. Ireland's information controller Helen Dixon as well tell to the paper, proverb the nation was prepared to use this complete set of tools versus non-compliant companies. The new rules go among increasing study on how main technology companies love Google and Facebook gather and use human beings as private data. Millions of electronic mail inboxes all above Europe imbued in latter weeks in messages of concerned companies searching obvious permit to go on send sale content to and collecting private information of their customers and contacts. The new rules manage not fair the gallery and store but its selling and operation for sale. Several companies relying in the joint state include Solve to halt trade in the Europe Association at low provisionally quite rather than hazard declining filthy of the new act. Members of the Europe Parliament, MEPs, see themselves as world leaders in a fight to bring the force of gigantic web technique companies and recover a extent of monitoring to countrymen and their selected representatives.